The Weston Game by Ellen Raskin. Chapter 1, Sunset Towers. The sun sets in the west. Just about everyone knows that. But Sunset Towers faced east. Strange. Sunset Towers faced east and had no towers. This glittery, glassy apartment house stood alone on the Lake Michigan shore, 5 stories high. 5 empty stories high. Then one day, it happened to be the 4th of July, a most uncommon-looking delivery boy rode around town, slipping letters under the doors of the chosen tenants-to-be. The letters were signed Barney Northrop. The delivery boy was 62 years old, and there was no such person as Barney Northrop. Dear lucky one, here it is, the apartment you've always dreamed of, at a rent you can afford, in the newest, most luxurious building on Lake Michigan. Sunset Towers. Picture windows in every room, uniformed doorman, maid service, central air conditioning, high-speed elevator, exclusive neighborhood, near excellent schools, etc., etc. You have to see it to believe it, but these unbelievably elegant apartments will be shown by appointment only. So hurry, there are only a few left. Call me now at 276-7474 for this once-in-a-lifetime offer. Your servant, Barney Northrop. P.S. I am also renting ideal space for doctor's office in lobby, coffee shop with entrance from parking lot, high-class restaurant on entire top floor. 6 letters were delivered, just 6. 6 appointments were made, and one by one, family by family, talk, Barney Northrop led the tours around and about Sunset Towers. Take a look at all that glass, one-way glass, Barney Northrop said. You can see out, nobody can see in. Looking up, the Wexlers, the first appointment of the day, were blinded by the blast of morning sun that flashed off the face of the building. See all those chandeliers? Crystal, Barney Northrop said, slicking his black mustache and straightening his hand-painted tie in the lobby's mirrored wall. How about this carpeting? 3 inches thick. Gorgeous, Mrs. Wexler replied, clutching her husband's arm as her high heels wobbled in the deep plush pile. She, too, managed an approving glance in the mirror before the elevator door opened. You're really in luck, Barney Northrop said. There's only one apartment left, but you'll love it. It was meant for you. He flung open the door to 3D. Now, is that breathtaking, or is that breathtaking? Mrs. Wexler gasped. It was breathtaking, all right. 2 walls of the living room were floor-to-ceiling glass. Following Barney Northrop's lead, she oohed and awed her joyous way through the entire apartment. Her trailing husband was less enthusiastic. What's this? A bedroom or a closet? Jake Wexler asked, peering into the last room. It's a bedroom, of course, his wife replied. It looks like a closet. Oh, Jake, this apartment is perfect for us. Just perfect. Grace Wexler argued in a whining coo. The 3rd bedroom was a trifle small, but it would do just fine for Turtle. And think what it means having your office in the lobby, Jake. No more driving to and from work, no more mowing the lawn or shoveling snow. Let me remind you, Barney Northrop said, the rent here is cheaper than what your old house costs in upkeep. How would he know that? Jake wondered. Grace stood before the front window, where, beyond the road, beyond the trees, Lake Michigan lay calm and glistening. A lake view. Just wait until those so-called friends of hers and their classy houses see this place. The furniture would have to be reupholstered. No, she'd buy new furniture, beige velvet, and she'd have stationery made, blue with a decal edge, her name and fancy address in swirling type across the top. Grace Windsor Wexler, Sunset Towers on the lake shore. Not every tenant-to-be was quite as overjoyed as Grace Windsor Wexler. Arriving in the late afternoon, Sidel Pulaski looked up and saw only the dim, warped reflections of treetops and drifting clouds in the glass face of Sunset Towers. You're really in luck, Barney Northrop said for the 6th and last time. There's only one apartment left, but you'll love it. It was meant for you. He flung open the door to a 1-bedroom apartment in the rear. Now, is that breathtaking, or is that breathtaking? Not especially, Sidel Pulaski replied as she blinked into the rays of the summer sun setting behind the parking lot. She had waited all these years for a place of her own, and here it was, in an elegant building where rich people lived. But she wanted a lake view. The front apartments are taken, Barney Northrop said. Besides, the rent's too steep for a secretary's salary. Believe me, you get the same luxuries here at a 1/3 of the price. At least the view from the side window was pleasant. Are you sure nobody can see in? Sidel Pulaski asked. Absolutely. Barney Northrop said, following her suspicious stare to the mansion on the north cliff. That's just the old Westing house up there. It hasn't been lived in for 15 years. Well, I'll have to think it over. I have 20 people begging for this apartment, Barney Northrop said, lying through his buck teeth. Take it or leave it. I'll take it. Whoever, whatever else he was, Barney Northrop was a good salesman. In one day he had rented all of Sunset Towers to the people whose names were already printed on the mailboxes in an alcove off the lobby. Office, Dr. Wexler. Lobby, Theodorcus Coffee Shop. 2C, F. Bombach. 2D, Theodorcus. 3C, S. Pulaski. 3D, Wexler. 4C, Who. 4D, J.J. Ford. 5, Shin-Hoo's Restaurant. Who were these people, these skeptically selected tenants? They were mothers and fathers and children, a dressmaker, a secretary, an inventor, a doctor, a judge. And oh yes, one was a bookie, one was a burglar, one was a bomber, and one was a mistake. Barney Northrop had rented one of the apartments to the wrong person. Chapter 2, Ghosts or Worse. On September 1st, the chosen ones, and the mistake, moved in. A wire fence had been erected along the north side of the building. On it, a sign warned, "No trespassing, property of the Westing estate." The newly paved driveway curved sharply and double-backed on itself rather than breach the city-county line. Sunset Towers stood at the far edge of town. On September 2nd, Shin-Hoo's Restaurant, specializing in authentic Chinese cuisine, held its grand opening. Only 3 people came. It was, indeed, an exclusive neighborhood, too exclusive for Mr. Hu. However, the less expensive coffee shop that opened on the parking lot was kept busy serving breakfast, lunch, and dinner to tenants, ordering up, and to workers from nearby Westingtown. Sunset Towers was a quiet, well-run building, and except for the grumbling Mr. Hu, the people who lived there seemed content. Neighbor greeted neighbor with good morning or good evening, or a friendly smile, and grappled with small problems behind closed doors. The big problems were yet to come. Now it was the end of October. A cold, raw wind whipped dead leaves about the ankles of the 4 people grouped in the Sunset Towers driveway, but not one of them shivered, not yet. The stocky, broad-shouldered man in the doorman's uniform, standing with his feet spread, fists on his hips, was Sandy McSuthers. The 2 slim, trim high school seniors, shielding their eyes against the stinging chill, were Theodorcus, and Doug Hu. The small, wiry man pointing to the house on the hill was Otis Amber, the 62-year-old delivery boy. They faced north, gaping like statues cast in the moment of discovery, until Turtle Wexler, her kite tail of a braid flying behind her, raced her bicycle into the driveway. Look, there's smoke. There's smoke coming from the chimney of the Westing house. The others had seen it. What did she think they were looking at anyway? Turtle leaned on the handlebars, panting for breath. Sunset Towers was near excellent schools, as Barney Northrop had promised, but the junior high was 4 miles away. Do you think old man Westing's up there? Nah, Otis Amber, the old delivery boy answered. Nobody's seen him for years. Supposed to be living on a private island in the South Seas, he is. But most folks say he's dead. Long gone dead. They say his corpse is still up there in that big old house. They say his body is sprawled out on a fancy oriental rug, and his flesh is rotting off those mean bones, and maggots are creeping in his eye sockets and crawling out his nose holes. The delivery boy added a high-pitched he to the gruesome details. Now someone shivered. It was Turtle. Serves him right, Sandy said. At other times, a cheery fellow, the doorman often complained bitterly about having been fired from his job of 20 years in the Westing paper mill. But somebody must be up there, somebody alive, that is. He pushed back the gold-braided cap and squinted at the house through his steel-framed glasses as if expecting the curling smoke to write the answer in the autumn air. Maybe it's those kids again. No, it couldn't be. What kids? The 3 kids wanted to know. Why, those 2 unfortunate fellas from Westingtown. What unfortunate fellas? The 3 heads twisted from the doorman to the delivery boy. Doug, who ducked Turtle's whizzing braid, touched her precious pigtail, even by accident, and she'll kick you in the shins, the brat. He couldn't chance an injury to his legs, not with the big meat coming. The track star began to jog in place. Horrible, it was horrible, Otis Amber said with a shudder that sent the loose straps of his leather aviator's helmet swinging about his long, thin face. Come to think of it, it happened exactly 1 year ago tonight on Halloween. What happened? Theodoricus asked impatiently. He was late for work in the coffee shop. Tell them, Otis, Sandy urged. The delivery boy stroked the gray stubble on his pointed chin. Seems it all started with a bet. Somebody bet them $1 they couldn't stay in that spooky house 5 minutes. One measly buck. The poor kids hardly got through those French doors on the side of the Westing house when they came tearing out like they was being chased by a ghost. Chased by a ghost, or worse. Or worse. Turtle forgot her throbbing toothache. Theo, Theodoricus, and Doug, who older and more worldly wise, exchanged winks but stayed to hear the rest of the story. One fellow ran out crazy like screaming his head off. He never stopped screaming till he hit the rocks at the bottom of the cliff. The other fellow hasn't said but 2 words since. Something about purple. Sandy helped him out. Purple waves. Otis Amber nodded sadly. Yep, that poor fellow just sits in the state asylum saying, purple waves, over and over again, and his scared eyes keep staring at his hands. You see, when he came running out of the Westing house, his hands was dripping with warm, red blood. Now all 3 shivered. Poor kid, the doorman said. All that pain and suffering for $1 bet. Make it $2 for each minute I stay in there, and you're on, Turtle said. Someone was spying on the group in the driveway. From the front window of apartment 2D, 15-year-old Chris Theodoricus watched his brother, Theo, shake hands. It must be a bet. With the skinny, one-pigtailed girl and rush into the lobby. The family coffee shop would be busy now. His brother should have been working the counter half an hour ago. Chris checked the wall clock. 2 more hours before Theo would bring up his dinner. Then he would tell him about the limper. Earlier that afternoon, Chris had followed the flight of a purple martin across the field of brambles, through the oaks, up to the red maple on the hill. The bird flew off, but something else caught his eye. Someone, he could not tell if the person was a man or a woman, came out of the shadows on the lawn, unlocked the French doors, and disappeared into the Westing house. Someone with a limp. Minutes later, smoke began to rise from the chimney. Once again, Chris turned toward the side window and scanned the house on the cliff. The French doors were closed. Heavy drapes hung flung against the 17 windows he had counted so many times. They didn't need drapes on the special glass windows here in the Sunset Towers. He could see out, but nobody could see in. Then why did he sometimes feel that someone was watching him? Who could be watching him? God? If God was watching, then why was he like this? The binoculars fell to the boy's lap. His head jerked, his body coiled, lashed by violent spasms. Relax. Theo will come soon. Relax. Soon the geese will be flying south in a V. Canada goose. Relax. Relax and watch the wind tangle the smoke and blow it toward Westingtown. Chapter 3. Tenants in and out. Upstairs in 3D, Angela Wexler stood on a hassock as still and blank-faced pretty as a store window dummy. Her pale blue eyes stared unblinkingly at the lake. Turn, dear, said Flora Baumbach, the dressmaker, who lived and worked in a smaller apartment on the 2nd floor. Angela pivoted in a slow quarter turn. Oh! Startled by the small cry, Flora Baumbach dropped the pin from her pudgy fingers and almost swallowed the 3 in her mouth. Please be careful, Mrs. Baumbach. My Angela has very delicate skin. Grace Windsor Wexler was supervising the fitting of her daughter's wedding dress from the beige velvet couch. Above her hung the 24 framed flower prints she had selected and arranged with the greatest of taste and care. She could have been an interior decorator, a good one, too, if it wasn't for the pressing demands of so on and so forth. Mrs. Baumbach didn't prick me, Mother, Angela said evenly. I was just surprised to see smoke coming from the Westing house chimney. Crawling with slow caution on her hands and knees, Flora Baumbach paused in the search for the dropped pin to peer up through her straight gray bangs. Mrs. Wexler set her coffee cup on the driftwood coffee table and craned her neck for a better view. We must have new neighbors. I'll have to drive up there with a housewarming gift. They may need some decorating advice. Hey, look, there's smoke coming from the Westing house. Again, Turtle was late with the news. Oh, it's you. Mrs. Wexler always seemed surprised to see her other daughter, so unlike golden-haired, angel-faced Angela. Flora Baumbach was about to rise with the found pin, quickly sank down again to protect her sore shin in the shag carpeting. She had pulled Turtle's braid in the lobby yesterday. Otis Amber says that old man Westing's stinking corpse is rotting on an oriental rug. My, oh my, Flora Baumbach exclaimed, and Mrs. Wexler clicked her tongue in an irritated tisk. Turtle decided not to go on with the horror story. Not that her mother cared if she got killed or ended up a raving lunatic. Mrs. Baumbach, could you hem my witch's costume? I need it for tonight. Mrs. Wexler answered, can't you see she's busy with Angela's wedding dress? And why must you wear a silly costume like that? Really, Turtle? I don't know why you insist on making yourself ugly. It's no sillier than a wedding dress, Turtle snapped back. Besides, nobody gets married anymore. If they do, they don't wear silly wedding dresses. She was close to a tantrum. Besides, who would want to marry that stuck-up, know-it-all, marshmallow-faced Dr. Denton? That's enough of your smart mouth, Mrs. Wexler leaped up, hand ready to strike. Instead, she straightened a framed flower print, patted her fashionable honey-blonde hairdo, and sat down again. She had never hit Turtle, but one of these days, besides, a stranger was present. Dr. Dear is a brilliant man, she explained for Flora Baumbach's ears. The dressmaker smiled politely. Angela will soon be Angela Dear. Isn't that a precious name? The dressmaker nodded. And then we'll have 2 doctors in the family. Now, where do you think you're going? Turtle was at the front door, downstairs to tell Daddy about the smoke coming from the Westing house. Come back this instant. You know your father operates in the afternoon. Why don't you go to your room and work on stock market reports or whatever you do in there? Some room. It's even too small for a closet. I'll hem your witch's costume, Turtle, Angela offered. Mrs. Wexler beamed on her perfect child draped in white. What an angel. Crow's clothes were black, her skin dead white. She looked severe. Rigid, in fact, rigid and righteously severe. No one could have guessed that under that stern facade her stomach was doing flip-flops as Dr. Wexler cut out a corn. Staring down at the fine lines of pink scalp that showed through the podiatrist's thinning light brown hair did nothing to ease her queasiness. So, softly humming a hymn, she settled her gaze on the north window. Smoke! Watch it. Jake Wexler almost cut off her little toe along with the corn. Unaware of the near amputation, the cleaning woman stared at the Westing house. If you will just sit back, Jake began, but his patient did not hear him. She must have been a handsome woman at one time, but life had used her harshly. Her faded hair, knotted in a tight bun on the nape of her gaunt neck, glinted gold red in the light. Her profile was fine, marred only by the jut of her clenched jaw. Well, let's get on with it. Friday was his busy day. He had phone calls to make. Please sit back, Mrs. Crow. I'm almost finished. What? Jake gently replaced her foot on the chair's pedestal. I see you've hurt your shin. What? For an instant their eyes met. Then she looked away. A shy creature, or a guilty one. Crow averted her face when she spoke. Your daughter, Turtle, kicked me, she muttered, staring once again at the Westing house. That's what happens when there is no religion in the home. Sandy says Westing's corpse is up there, rotting away on an oriental rug, but I don't believe it. If he's truly dead, then he's roasting in heck. We are sinners, all. What do you mean his corpse is rotting on an oriental rug? Some kind of Persian rug? Maybe a Chinese rug? Mr. Hu joined his son at the glass side wall of the 5th floor restaurant. And why were you wasting precious time listening to an overage delivery boy with an overactive imagination when you should have been studying? It was not a question. Doug's father never asked questions. Don't shrug at me. Go study. Sure, Dad. Doug jogged off through the kitchen. It was no use arguing that there was no school tomorrow, just track practice. He jogged down the back stairs, no matter what excuse he gave. Go study, his father would say. Go study. He jogged into the Who's rear apartment, stretched out on the bare floor, and repeated, go study, to 20 sit-ups. Only 2 customers were expected for the dinner hour. Shin Hu's restaurant could seat 100. Mr. Hu slammed the reservations book shut, pressed a hand against the pain in his ample stomach, unwrapped a chocolate bar, and devoured it quickly before acid retched another ulcer. Back home again, is he? Well, Westing won't get off so easy this time, not on his life. A small, delicate woman in a long white apron stood in silence before the restaurant's east window. She stared longingly into the boundless gray distance as if far, far on the other side of Lake Michigan lay China. Sandy McSuthers saluted as the maroon Mercedes swung around the curved driveway and came to a stop at the entrance. He opened the car door with a ceremony reserved only for Judge J.J. Ford. Look up there, Judge. There's smoke coming from the Westing house. A tall black woman in a tailored suit, her short clipped hair touched with gray, slipped out from behind the wheel, handed the car keys to the doorman, and cast a disinterested glance at the house on the hill. They say nobody's up there. Just the corpse of old man Weston rotting away on an oriental rug," Sandy reported as he hoisted a full briefcase from the trunk of the car. "Do you believe in ghosts, Judge?" "There is certain to be more a rational explanation." "You're right, of course, Judge." Sandy opened the heavy glass door and followed on the judge's heels through the hobby. "I was just repeating what Otis Amber said." "Otis Amber is a stupid man, if not downright mad." J.J. Ford hurried into the elevator. She should not have said that. Not her. Not the first woman to have been elected to a judgeship in the state. She was tired of, after a trying day, and that was it. Or was it? So Sam Westing has come home at last? Well, she could sell the car, take out a bank loan, pay him back in cash. But would he take it? "Please don't repeat what I said about Otis Amber, Mr. McSuthers." "Don't worry, Judge." The doorman escorted her to the door of apartment 4D. "What you tell me is strictly confidential." And it was. J.J. Ford was the biggest tipper in Sunset Towers. I saw some Chris Theodoricus was too excited to stutter out the news to his brother. One arm shot out and twisted up over his head. Dumb arm. Theo squatted next to the wheelchair. "Listen, Chris, I'll tell you about that haunted castle on the hill." His voice was soothing and hushed in mystery. "Somebody's up there, Chris, but nobody is there. Just rich Mr. Westing, and he's dead. Dead as a squashed June bug, and rotting away on a moth-eaten oriental rug." Chris relaxed, as he always did when his brother told him a story. Theo was good at making up stories. "And the worms are crawling in and out of the dead man's skull, in and out of his ear holes, his nose holes, his mouth holes, in and out of all his holes." Chris laughed, then quickly composed his face. He was supposed to look scared. Theo leaned closer, and high above the putrid corpse, a crystal chandelier is twinkling. It twinkles and twinkles, but not one breath of air stirs in that gloomy tomb of a room. Gloomy tomb of a room. Theo would make a good writer someday, Chris thought. He wouldn't spoil this wonderful spooky Halloween story by telling him about the real person up there, the one with the limp. So Chris sat quietly, his body at ease, and heard about ghosts and ghouls and purple waves, and smiled at his brother with pure delight. A smile that could break your heart, Sidel Pulaski, the tenant in 3C always said, but no one paid any attention to Sidel Pulaski. Sidel Pulaski struggled out of the taxi, large and first. She was not a heavy woman, just wide-hipped from years of secretarial sitting. If only there was a ladylike way to get out of a cab. Her green rhinestone-studded glasses slipped down her fleshy nose as she grappled with a tall triangular package and stuffed shopping bag. If only that lazy driver would lend her a hand. Not for a nickel tip, he wouldn't. The cabbie slammed the back door and sped around the curved driveway, narrowly missing the Mercedes that Sandy was driving to the parking lot. At least the never-there-when-you-need-him doorman had propped open the front door. Not that he ever helped her, or noticed her, for that matter. No one ever noticed. Sidel Pulaski limped through the lobby. She could be carrying a high-powered rifle in that package and no one would notice. She had moved to Sunset Towers hoping to meet elegant people, but no one had invited her in for so much as a cup of tea. No one paid any attention to her except that poor, crippled boy whose smile could break your heart, and that bratty kid with the braid. She'll be sorry that she kicked her in the shin. Juggling her load, earrings jingling and charm bracelet jingling, Sidel Pulaski unlocked the several locks to apartment 3C and bolted the door behind her. There'd be fewer burglaries around here if people listened to her about putting in deadbolt locks, but nobody listened. Nobody cared. On the plastic-covered dining table, she set out the contents of the shopping bag. 6 cans of enamel, paint thinner, and brushes. She unwrapped the long package and leaned 4 wooden crutches against the wall. The sun was setting over the parking lot, but Sidel Pulaski did not look out her back window. From the side window, smoke could be seen rising from the Westing house. But Sidel Pulaski did not notice. "No one ever notices Sidel Pulaski," she muttered. "But now they will. Now they will." The Corpse Found, Chapter 4. The Halloween moon was full, except for her receding chin. Turtle Wexler looked every inch in the witch, her dark, unbraided hair streaming wild in the wind from her under her peaked hat. A putty wart pasted on her small beaked nose. If only she could fly to the Westing house on a broomstick instead of scrambling over rocks on all fours. What with all she had to carry? Under the long black cape, the pockets of her jeans bulged with necessities for the night's dangerous vigil. Doug, who had already reached the top of the cliff and taken his station behind the maple on the lawn, the track star, was chosen timekeeper because he could run faster than anyone in the state of Wisconsin. "Here she comes. It's about time." Shivering knee-deep in damp leaves that couldn't do his leg muscles much good, he readied his thumb on the button of the stopwatch. Turtle squinted into the blackness that lay within the open French doors, open as though someone or something was expecting her. There's no such thing as a ghost. Besides, all you had to do was speak friendly-like to them. Ghosts, like dogs, know when a person's scared. Ghosts, or worse, Otis Amber had said. Well, not even the worst could hurt Turtle Wexler. She was pure of heart and deed. She only kicked shins in self-defense, so that couldn't count against her. She wasn't scared. She was not scared. Hurry up! That was Doug from behind the tree. At $2 a minute, 25 minutes would pay for a subscription to the Wall Street Journal. She could stay all night. She was prepared. Turtle checked her pockets. 2 sandwiches, Sandy's flask filled with orange pop, a flashlight, her mother's silver cross to ward off vampires, the putty wart on her nose, soaked in Angela's perfume in the event she was locked up with the stinking corpse, was clogging her nostrils with sticky sweetness. Turtle took a deep breath of chill night air and flinched with pain. She was afraid of dentists, not ghosts, or don't think about purple waves. Think about $2 a minute. Now, 1, 2, 3, 3.5, go. Doug checked his stopwatch. 9 minutes, 10 minutes, 11 minutes. Suddenly a terrified scream, a young girl's scream, pierced the night. Should he go in? Or was this one of the brat's tricks? Another scream, closer. Eee! Clutching the bunched cape around her waist, Turtle came hurtling out of the Westing house. Eee! Turtle had seen the corpse in the Westing house, but it was not rotting, and it was not sprawled on an oriental rug. The dead man was tucked in a 4-poster bed. A throbbing whisper, purple, purple, or was it turtle, turtle, whatever it was scary, had beckoned her to the master bedroom on the 2nd floor, and maybe it was a dream. No, it couldn't be. She ached all over from the tumble down the stairs. The moon was down, the window dark. Turtle lay in the narrow bed in her narrow room, waiting. Dark, still dark, waiting. At last, slow morning crept up the cliff and raised the Westing house, the house of whispers, the house of death. $2 times 12 minutes equals $24. Thud. The morning newspaper was flung against the front door. Turtle tiptoed through the sleeping apartment to retrieve it and climbed back into bed, the dead man staring at her from the front page. The face was younger, the short beard darker, but it was he, all right. Sam Westing, found dead. Found? No one else knew about the bedded-down corpse except Doug, and he had not believed her. Then who found the body? The Whisperer? Samuel W. Westing, the mysterious industrialist who disappeared 13 years ago, was found dead in his Westingtown mansion last night. He was 65 years old. The only child of immigrant parents, orphaned at the age of 12, self-educated, hard-working Samuel Westing saved his laborer's wages and bought a small paper mill. From these meager beginnings, he built the giant Westing Paper Products Corporations and founded the city of Westingtown to house his thousands of workers and their families. His estate is estimated to be worth over $200 million. Turtle read that again. $200 million. Wow. When asked the secret of his success, the industrialist always replied, clean living, hard work, and fair play. Westing set his own example. He neither drank nor smoked and never gambled, yet he was a dedicated gamesman and a master at chess. Turtle had been in the game room. That's where she picked up the billiard cue she had to stay as a great patriot. Samuel Westing was famous for his fun-filled 4th of July celebration, a disciplined, lonely drummer boy. He always acted a role in early staged pageants, which he wrote and directed. Perhaps best remembered was his surprise portrayal of Betsy Ross. Games and feasting followed the pageant, and at sunset Mr. Westing put on his Uncle Sam costume and set off fireworks from his front lawn. The spectacular pyrotechnic display could be viewed 30 miles away. Fireworks? So that's what was in those boxes stamped Danger, Explosives, stacked in the ground floor storeroom. What a pyrotechnic display that would make if they all went off at the same time. The Paper King's later years were marred by tragedy. His only daughter, Violet, drowned on the eve of her wedding, and 2 years later his troubled wife deserted their home. Although Mr. Westing obtained a divorce, he never remarried. 5 years later, he was sued by an inventor over rights to the disposable paper diaper. On his way to court, Samuel Westing and his friend Dr. Sidney Sykes were involved in a near-fatal automobile accident. Both men were hospitalized with severe injuries. Sykes resumed his Westingtown medical practice and the post of county coroner, but Westing disappeared from sight. It was rumored, but never confirmed, that he controlled the vast Westing Paper Products Corporation from a private island in the South Seas. He is still listed as chairman of the board. We are as surprised as you are and deeply saddened, a spokesman from Julian R. Eastman, president and chief executive officer of the corporation, stated when informed that Westing's body was found in his lakeside home. Dr. Sykes' response was, "A tragic end to a tragic life. Sam Westing was a truly great and important man. The funeral will be private." The executor of the Westing estate said the deceased requested that, in place of flowers, donations be sent to Blind Bowlers of America. Turtle turned the page of the newspaper, but that was all. That was all? There was no mention of how the body was found. There was no mention of the envelope propped on the bedside table on which a shaky hand had scrawled, "If I am found dead, in bed." She had been edging her way against the four-poster, reading the words in the beam of the flashlight, when she felt the hand, the waxy dead hand that lay on the red, white, and blue quilt. Through her scream, she had seen the white, bearded face. She remembered running, tripping over the billiard cue, falling down the stairs, denting Sandy's flask, and dropping everything else. There was no mention of two suspicious peanut butter and jelly sandwiches on the premises, or a flashlight, or a silver cross on a chain. There was no mention of prowlers, no mention of anyone having seen a witch, no mention of footprints on the lawn, track shoes, and sneakers size 6. Oh well, she had nothing to fear, other than losing her mother's cross. Old Mr. Westing probably died of a heart attack or pneumonia. It was drafty in there. Turtle hid the folded newspaper in her desk drawer, counted her black and blue marks in the mirror. 7. Dressed and set out to find the 4 people who knew she had been in the Westing house last night. Doug Who, Theo, Theodorcus, Otis Amber, and Sandy. They owed her $24. At noon, the 62-year-old delivery boy began his rounds. He had 16 letters to deliver from E. J. Plum, attorney at law. Otis Amber knew what the letter said, but one was addressed to him. As a named beneficiary in the estate of Samuel W. Westing, your attendance is required in the South Library of the Westing House tomorrow at 4 p.m. for the reading of the will. Means old man, Westing left you some money, he explained. Just sign this receipt here. What do you mean? What does position mean? It means position, like a job. Most receipts have that to make sure the right person gets the right letter. Grace Windsor Wexler wrote housewife, crossed it out, wrote decorator, crossed it out, and wrote heiress, which she wanted to know. Who else? How many? How much? I ain't allowed to say nothing. The other heirs were too stunned by the unexpected legacy to bother him with questions. Madame Who marked an X, and her husband filled in her name and position. Theo wanted to sign the receipt for his brother, but Chris insisted on doing it himself. Slowly, taking great pains, he wrote, Christus Theodorcus, birdwatcher. By the time the sun had set behind the Sunset Towers parking lot, Otis Amber, deliverer, had completed his rounds. Chapter 5. 16 Heirs. The marbled sky lay heavy on the gray Great Lake when Grace Windsor Wexler parked her car in the Westing driveway and strode up the walk ahead of her daughters. Her husband had refused to come, but no matter. Recalling family gossip about a rich uncle, maybe it was a great uncle, anyway, his name was Sam. Grace had convinced herself that she was the rightful heir. Jake was Jewish, so he could not possibly be related to Samuel W. Westing. I can't imagine what became of my silver cross, she said, fingering the gold-linked necklace under her mink stole as she paused to appraise the big house. You know, Angela, we could have the wedding right here. Turtle, where are you wandering off to now? The letter said, never mind. Turtle preferred not to explain how she knew the library could be entered from the French doors on the lawn. The front door was opened by Crow, although the Sunset Towers cleaning woman always wore black. Here it reminded Grace Wexler to dab at her eyes with a lace handkerchief. This was a house of mourning. The silent Crow helped Angela with her coat and nodded approval of her blue velvet dress with white collar and cuffs. I'll keep my furs with me, Grace said. She did not want to be taken for one of the poor relatives. Seems rather chilly in here. Turtle, too, complained of the chill, but her mother tugged off her coat to reveal a fluffy, roughly pink party dress, 2 sizes too large and 4 inches too long. It was one of Angela's hand-me-downs. Please sit anywhere, the lawyer said without glancing from the envelopes he was sorting at the head of the long library table. Mrs. Wexler took the chair to his right and motioned to her favorite. Angela sat down next to her mother, removed a trousseau towel from her large tapestry shoulder bag, and took up embroidering the monogram D. Slumped in the third chair, Turtle pretended She had never seen this paneled library with its bare and dusty shelves. Suddenly she sat up with a start. An open coffin, draped in bunting, rested on a raised platform at the far corner of the room. In it lay the dead man, looking exactly as she had found him, except now he was dressed in the costume of Uncle Sam, including the tall hat. Between the waxy hands, folded across his chest, lay her mother's silver cross. Grace Wexler was too busy greeting the next heir to notice. "Why, Dr. D, I had no idea you'd be here, but of course you'll soon be a member of the family. Come, sit next to your bride-to-be. Turtle, you'll have to move down." D. Denton dear, always in a hurry, brushed a quick kiss on Angela's cheek. He was still wearing his hospital whites. "I didn't know this was a pajama party," Turtle said, relinquishing her chair and stomping to the far end of the table.